everyone. My name is Anurag Mishra. I'm a senior clean specialist at USAID. I welcome you all to USAID South Asia Regional Energy Partnership or SAREP's regional launch session on cooperation for clean energy transition in South Asia. Thank you all for joining us from across the region. All the South Asian countries have made commitments to transition to clean energy to drive economic growth and prosperity. And this presents an unique opportunity for the region to work together to further accelerate this transition. And today's discussion is centered around this. So let's begin the proceedings of today's session with the introduction to the South Asia Regional Energy Partnership Initiative of USAID, or we all call as SAREP, starting with a short video and then some insights from John Smith Serene, Director of Indo-Pacific Office, USAID India, on how SAREP plans to enable regional cooperation. So now I request the team to play the video and then John to take over the microphone after that. Thank you.
South Asia has a rich cultural landscape, unique geography, and diverse population. And the economic aspirations of its over 1.5 billion citizens unite the region. However, this region, with the world's fastest expanding economy, is also tremendously vulnerable to climate change. Greater access to clean energy will help meet the region's rapid growth without compromising its natural, social and economic resources. The United States Agency for International Development, better known as USAID, is committed to working alongside its South Asian partners to help ensure a just transition from fossil-based to clean energy to drive economic growth and development. Our shared dedication to clean energy and climate action have resulted in USAID's new 5-year program, the South Asia Regional Energy Partnership, or SAREP. This initiative will improve access to affordable, reliable and sustainable energy in 6 countries: Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, Nepal and Sri Lanka. Over the next 5 years, SAREP will accelerate renewable energy deployment, conserve power through promoting energy efficiency, mobilize billions of dollars in investments, and train thousands of employees in the clean energy sector. SAREP will reach these goals by building regional energy markets and enhancing cross-border electricity trade for a regionally integrated grid, deploying and scaling advanced energy solutions such as renewable energy, electric vehicles and distributed energy resources, enabling high-performing modern power utilities to strengthen their transmission, system operation and distribution services, and leveraging investments through transparent best value procurement practices and innovative financing instruments. Additionally, SAREP through the South Asia Regional Energy Hub, or SARE, will facilitate dynamic collaboration, coordination and communication among its South Asian stakeholders, champion gender mainstreaming in the energy sector, and enable pollution mitigation. Further, through its $12 million partnership fund, SAREP will issue multiple grants to advance green energy solutions. And SAREP will also forge deeper energy cooperation and new partnerships in South Asia to achieve net zero targets. Now is the time to galvanize South Asia's clean energy transition. Let's work together through SAREP in empowering the region to meet urgent clean energy goals.
Assalamualaikum, Huzuzang Pola, Namaste, Ayubuan. It's really wonderful to be here with colleagues from Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, Nepal, and Sri Lanka to discuss issues of such great importance to South Asia and to the United States. I hope you found the video to be inspiring. The challenges in front of all of us are formidable, and yet the opportunities enormous. USAID is proud to work with all of you on these issues, bringing together regional cooperation on energy security, economic growth, and environmental protection under the South Asia Regional Energy Partnership, SAREP. Let me build from the video to provide some additional insights into how SAREP will contribute to regional priorities and facilitate systemic change. SAREP will continue to support cross-border power trade, taking over from USAID's South Asia Regional Initiative for Energy Integration, SARI. We will facilitate the development of a regionally integrated power market, enhance coordination and planning, strengthen national and regional institutions, drive consensus and operating standards, and institutionalize mechanisms to support trilateral and multilateral power trade. I was working with SARI Energy 20 years ago during my first USAID tour in India, and I'm really pleased to see the progress made, including the significant increases in cross-border electricity trade between and among Bangladesh and Bhutan and India and Nepal. We were especially encouraged when both Nepal and Bhutan recently joined the India Energy Exchange, representing a move toward a true regional energy market. SAREP will share learning, build partnerships, and strengthen institutions to serve regional needs and expand markets for private sector investment to accelerate the deployment of clean energy technologies, including renewable energy, energy efficiency, energy storage, off-grid, behind-the-meter technologies, and smart appliances, electric vehicles, and green hydrogen, to name a few. We will offer solutions and tools to support renewable energy integration through market products and technologies. We will create a regional knowledge platform, as well as organize capacity building programs and exchange visits aligned to our shared technical objectives. Having lived and worked in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and India, I know there are many wonderful examples of advanced energy technologies and creative business models throughout South Asia, as well as in the United States. We can all learn from each other by working together and sharing information and lessons learned. SAREP is working on establishing a South Asia distribution utilities network to enable modernization of transmission, system operation, and distribution utilities in the region. The expected outcome is modern, financially viable utilities that will enable a clean energy transition and efficient energy markets. Healthy, efficient discoms are a key to energy access, financial viability, and content consumers. The SAREP Partnership Fund is designed to support market-based solutions that will enable the clean energy transition by engaging the private sector and particularly local organizations and new and underutilized partners. The first regional call for grant applications is planned for this May. I hope this brief overview has provided a bit more insight and information about SAREP, and we look forward to working with all of you to make it a success throughout South Asia. I would now like to invite Ms. Veena Reddy, Mission Director, USAID India and Bhutan, to share her remarks with you.
Good afternoon. It is quite a pleasure to be here on behalf of USAID India, and I'd like to thank the dignitaries from the regional governments and officials who've joined us, as well as my fellow USAID mission directors from South Asia to celebrate the launch of this new initiative. This month, in fact, the White House released its Indo-Pacific strategy with a vision for a region which remains free and open and becomes ever more resilient, prosperous, secure, and interconnected. And as we all know, South Asia is one of the fastest growing regions, and energy has a vital role to play in its socioeconomic development. We hope that this activity will further the vision of the US government through facilitating collaboration among the 6 countries and also accelerate their own visions to transition justly to clean energy. We recognize that this rapid urbanization has led to incredible growth and energy demands, but it also represents an opportunity to innovate. Though clean energy innovations will, of course, not on their own solve these issues, we're also hoping to address issues such as financing of new technologies, efficiency in utilities and policy, and regulatory ecosystems that can be improved and made more equitable. This new program that John Smith-Serene very adeptly described will work directly with the governments of India and Bhutan, as well as through other USAID initiatives in Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Maldives to address these challenges. So I think John already talked about the peer-to-peer exchanges, cross-border knowledge exchanges for the Regional Parliamentary Forum and other regional fora that can support cross-border power trade. In addition, I'd like to emphasize the cross-cutting issues across the energy sector, such as gender diversity and inclusion, increasing the role of the private sector, and mitigating pollution as countries shift their energy profiles, which will all be part of this activity. So I look forward to working with all of you to advance affordable, secure, reliable, and sustainable energy in the South Asia region together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Reddy. I'd now like to invite Ms. Catherine Davis-Stevens, Mission Director, USAID Bangladesh, to share some remarks with us.
Thank you, John, Veena, and good afternoon to everyone. It is a great pleasure to join the Honorable Secretaries from throughout the South Asia region, as well as colleagues and regional participants on the call today. This is a great opportunity for all of us to come together and for South Asian energy leaders to convene in one place. As we all know, Bangladesh is one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world. Every year, millions of people in Bangladesh suffer from the impact of climate change. We are pleased to contribute to addressing this important issue in the region. USAID in Bangladesh is accelerating efforts to meet the urgency of this great challenge by building on a strong foundation of climate change programs and partnerships. In June of 2021, we launched our new 5-year, 17 million Bangladesh Advancing Development Growth Through Energy, or BADGE activity, aimed at establishing policies that facilitate clean energy innovations and attract private sector investment. Through BADGE, we're strengthening our support for Bangladesh's clean energy transition in the coming years. And we see tremendous opportunities to collaborate across the region and to build partnerships in helping all South Asian countries transition to clean energy. I'm very excited to see the launch of this program today, which can further strengthen and complement all of our bilateral assistance to clean energy throughout the region. We believe SAREP will support the clean energy transition of the entire region by strengthening institutions, harmonizing policies and regulations, deploying innovative technologies and business models that are attractive to the private sector, and supporting tri- and multilateral electricity trade. By sharing lessons learned through peer-to-peer interactions across the region, I look forward to seeing partnerships grow between public institutions and the private sector. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see you all today.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. I would now like to invite Ms. Sepide Kevachad, Mission Director, USAID Nepal, to share some remarks with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is really great to be here and to participate in the official launch of USAID South Asia Regional Energy Partnership Program with honorable secretaries and senior officials from Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, the Maldives, and Sri Lanka, as well as my USAID colleagues from the region. I would like to start with some notes about the great progress that Nepal has made in the energy sector. Grid stability and total clean energy generation in Nepal have markedly increased in recent years. In 2021, there was surplus energy. There was surplus energy production during the rainy season for the first time, which allowed Nepal to sell its energy in the regional market. Additionally, Nepal's export of 44,000 megawatt hours of electricity to India, a pilot for cross-border electricity trade, led to the reduction of an estimated 4.1 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. As we all know, energy access and security are central to the health and welfare of Nepalese and to Nepal's future, like it is in many countries across the region and across the world. And these are important for Nepal's future sustainable development, which powers everything from health centers to schools to new enterprises seeking to use IT in innovative and job-creating ways. At the same time, even with the positive progress that was made to date, Nepal remains well short of its potential of producing the estimated 40,000 commercially viable megawatts from hydropower alone. And we should keep in mind that while Nepal has abundant clean energy resources, both hydropower and solar, it also has one of the lowest per capita electricity consumption rates in the world. This means that while Nepal can and should increase its clean energy generation, it also needs to better utilize this electricity so it does not go to waste. So to address these challenges, USAID Nepal has been working closely with the government of Nepal and with private sector to strengthen institutions and to create capacity that are vital for the sustainable development of Nepal's energy sector. And we're also assisting in utility modernization, advanced energy system development, and power trade. As we look into the future, we at USAID Nepal will continue to coordinate closely with our neighboring USAID missions, as well as with other USG agencies and institutions. And of course, we'll continue to engage closely with USAID India on issues of inherently regional dimensions, including cross-border energy trade. SAREP will build on our bilateral and regional efforts by broadening and deepening our engagement to help in South Asia's clean energy transition. There is definitely so much potential in the region that we are going to continue to work on, and we are looking forward to the discussion and to collectively achieving consequential progress at the regional scale. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kevachad. And now we'd like to turn to Mr. Reed Ashleman, Mission Director, USAID Sri Lanka and the Maldives, to share some remarks with us.
John, thank you to all the my colleagues that have spoken already, missions around the region, and distinguished guests. We're happy also to be here at the launch of this SAREP partnership, which, as John mentioned, will continue the great work in the power and energy sector of the South Asia region. Over the years, the power and energy sector in Sri Lanka has benefited through regional programs carried out through such initiatives. So I'm very also happy to see Honorable Secretary Pereira from Sri Lanka and the Honorable Secretary Ajwad from the Maldives joining this event. Thank you so much for participating. As a mission here in South Asia, the energy sector is a relatively new area of bilateral work for us. However, over the last year, we have worked closely with the Ministry of Power in Sri Lanka, and we've recently started discussions with the Maldives Ministry of Environment on potential work that could be done in this sector. So within our development strategy, we are indeed looking at ways to work in the natural resource management and energy sectors, including focusing in areas on climate change, adaptation, as well as energy. In May 2021, just last year, the mission awarded its first bilateral energy program called the Sri Lanka Energy Program, which was contracted to Comonix International. In addition to this program, we also have the Washington-based Energy Regulatory Partnership Program implemented by the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners here in Sri Lanka as well. Both of these programs have helped us get started in this important sector in the power and energy sector here in Sri Lanka, which we hope to link in with this regional partnership. With the common objectives of the SAREP program and the Sri Lanka Energy Program, we look forward to drawing on the regional experience, the expertise, as well as some of the exchanges perhaps, and we look for opportunities for the Maldives as we continue our discussions with them. So once again, I'm thankful for this opportunity to virtually meet you, for the support that has been extended towards the mission over the years. We look forward to future collaboration and future exchanges between the mission and the new SAREP initiative to continue to work in the power and energy sector in both Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ashleman, and thanks to all four mission directors for the overview and for your participation and support. Anurag, back to you.
Thank you, John. So in today's session, we are honored to have the leaders from South Asia, and they will share their country's priorities and the perspectives for regional cooperation to enable clean energy transition in South Asia. And we are so pleased to welcome our honorable guest, Mr. Mohammad Hussain, Director General, Power Cell, Ministry of Power and Energy, Government of Bangladesh. Dasho Chotin Wangchuk, Officiating Secretary, Ministry of Economic Affairs, Royal Government of Bhutan. Mr. Azwat Mustafa, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Technology, Government of Maldives. Mr. Devinder Karki, Secretary, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation, Government of Nepal. And Ms. Vasanta Pereira, Secretary, Ministry of Power, Government of Sri Lanka. So let me invite our host speaker, Mr. Mohammad Hussain, Director General, Power Cell, Government of Bangladesh, for his special address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Anurag. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. It's indeed a pleasure for me to attend this August gathering, and I'd like to congratulate the concerned authority for this formal launch of USAID's SAREP program. And also my pleasure to share thoughts on the theme of regional cooperation and clean energy and climate change alongside my counterparts from South Asian countries. You know that Bangladesh is on a trajectory to become a developed country by the year 2041. Despite the economic success, the country is facing various challenges, particularly concerning climate change. Despite very low per capita emissions, excuse me, and being highly vulnerable to climate impacts, Bangladesh has set a target to reduce carbon emission by 22% by 2030 compared to 2012. Boosting electricity generation in the last decade has helped Bangladesh achieve over 7% economic growth in 2021. Bangladesh has also moved from being a power deficit to becoming a power surplus nation. Environment protection while pursuing economic goals is a tough balancing act that each country must perform, particularly Bangladesh. To meet the future energy needs, Bangladesh has set a target to increase installed electricity generation capacity, but also set an ambitious goal of generating more than 4 gigawatt of electricity from renewable energy sources by the year 2030. Today, about only 3.5% of the country's power comes from renewable sources. The government plans to increase this by uh, by 30% by the year 2030. Bangladesh has the largest off-grid solar program in the world, enabling 20 million Bangladeshis to access green electricity with 6 million solar home system, which offers experiences and lessons for other countries to expand access to clean and affordable electricity. However, we are yet to scale grid-connected large-scale and distributed renewable energy sources. Bangladesh has strategies for energy efficiency, focusing on energy efficiency and conservation in building through the Building Energy Efficiency and Environment Rating, in short BEAD program, energy efficiency labeling program for appliances, and initiatives for improving energy efficiency in the industries, especially for the garment industry. About 140 out of 2,000 garment factories that export clothing are already certified by LEED, a US-based rating system for green buildings. Bangladesh is also shifting towards new energy sector developments such as green hydrogen and electric vehicles. The government plans to increase the share of electric vehicles to at least 15% of all registered vehicles by the year 2030, for which we need to create infrastructure and reduce the cost of creating local manufacturing capacities. On the regional front, Bangladesh has plans to sell and obtain clean energy through regional power trade, expanding trade with Nepal and Bhutan to meet our renewable energy targets, in addition to ongoing regional cooperation with India. To achieve our clean energy targets, Bangladesh needs to create long-term market confidence for private sector participants. This is where some learnings on utilizing the public sector to kickstart markets for new technologies and removing private sector constraints to developing projects and providing incentives to create a market for renewable energy and a conducive business environment. And finally, creating better capacities with local companies accessing international private investments to reduce the gap from the shortfall in public sector financing capabilities. Bangladesh can also share and benefit from regional experiences in emerging regulations, standards for new technologies, and procurement practices. Lastly, I see an opportunity to link our institution to create regional platforms for sharing knowledge and experience as all the South Asian countries march towards meeting their climate goals. Government of Bangladesh is already collaborating with USAID, uh, US Trade Department, US State Department. USAID's Bangladesh Advancing Development Growth Through Energy, or BEST program, launched last year, is helping Bangladesh power economic growth and mitigate climate change. I feel regional cooperation can further help all countries in the region to scale up deployment of clean energy technologies, build local technical skills, and enable investments. USAID's South Asian Regional Energy Infrastructure Program, SAREP, has already started activities to focus on assisting Bangladesh in participating in the regional power trade, building initial capacity on green hydrogen, sharing knowledge and expanding charging infrastructure for electric vehicles, and assisting in smart metering training for engineers and technicians. I am already involved in USAID's SAREP initiative on cross-border trade and look forward to engaging more with SAREP's interventions to speed up Bangladesh adoption of zero-emission technologies and share our experience with other countries. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Hossain. So next, now I would like to request Dasho Chotin Wangchuk, Official Secretary, Ministry of Economic Affairs, Government of Bhutan, for his special remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anurag Mishra. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm delighted to be part of today's event with senior officials from the government of Bangladesh, India, Nepal, Maldives, and Sri Lanka, along with senior officials from USAID. As one of pioneers in regional energy cooperation in South Asia, we understand how it can have significant impact on a country and region's economic growth and support the clean energy and climate goals. Bhutan clean energy and climate priorities. As our former Prime Minister, Dashutring Tobgay, mentioned, I quote, Bhutan is not only carbon neutral, it is carbon negative, unquote. A reputation that no other country in the world can boast of. Bhutan's economy is driven by clean hydro resources, contributing around 18% to its GDP. As many of you may be aware, the country has rich hydropower resources of around 33 gigawatt. Of this, only 2.2 gigawatt have been harnessed thus far, and by 2026, another 2.9 gigawatt will be added to the existing capacity. Even with only 6.7% of its hydro potential harnessed, Bhutan had been seamlessly exporting majority of its clean hydropower to India for the last 35 years and is continuing to do so. This has been possible due to Bhutan's very successful bilateral partnership with the government of India. Hydropower resource will continue to be a mainstay in our economy with focus on tapping markets in other countries. Bhutan is exploring selling power to Bangladesh, as well as developing a joint hydropower project with the government of India and Bangladesh. We are also looking at tapping the Indian Power Exchange as market for our hydro resources in future. The Sustainable Hydropower Development Policy 2021, released last year, articulates support for further regional energy integration and integrated market. To diversify its energy basket, the Royal Government of Bhutan is also looking at developing other renewable energy resources such as solar and wind. Renewable energy development has been identified as one of 9 strategic thrust areas along with hydropower. The Bhutan Renewable Energy Master Plan estimates that the country could produce 12 gigawatt of solar and 760 megawatt of wind energy. Though the development of renewables in the country has thus far been in the piloting and demonstration stage, a 17.54 megawatt solar power plant development has been initiated, and the country is looking into upscaling its renewable energy development target to 200 megawatt by 2030. Development of renewable energy would increase resource diversity, complement the seasonality of hydro resources, provide access to remote locations where grid cannot be connected, and replace fossil fuel-based cooking with cleaner resources. The Bhutan government is also emphasizing on enhancing energy efficiency at the same time. Electric vehicles and green hydrogen are some of the other priority areas for Bhutan. The Bhutan Sustainable Hydropower Development Policy in particular makes provision for innovations, investment, and development of a hydrogen economy for both domestic and foreign markets. Opportunities and needs for regional cooperation. Bhutan sees great opportunity and value of regional energy cooperation. We have benefited from it and see importance of such partnerships and collaborations to further our and the region's clean energy and carbon goals. Hydro resources for Bhutan and Nepal can support development of renewable energy in India and replace costlier fossil-based power in Bangladesh. Regionally integrated grid and markets will help optimize resources, drive down costs, and bring greater efficiencies in the system. We also believe that sharing of knowledge, experiences, and learnings can be another very useful form of regional collaboration. We can learn from India's stewardship in developing its renewable resources, as well as Bangladesh from its success in energy access. Bhutan, on its part, can share its success story in achieving electricity for all in 2017 by following a well-charted accelerated electrification roadmap and development of hydropower for mutual benefits between two neighboring countries. There are similarly several such successes from the partner countries that can be used to inform, scale, replicate, and leapfrog the journey of clean energy transition. Collaboration and partnerships between institutions, utilities, regulators, researchers, and think tanks in the region will promote innovations and advancements in the energy sector. Joint research and development, knowledge sharing platforms, joint regional projects, and regional cooperation in general can help the countries in the region to scale the deployment of clean energy technologies, build local technical skills, and enable investments. Engagement with USAID. We have had a long and successful partnership with USAID as a part of the SARI, or South Asia Regional Initiative for Energy Program. Over the years, SARI has helped facilitate power trade in the region by building consensus, strengthening capacities, and facilitating a dialogue on the need for regional energy cooperation. Recently, our engagement with USAID was expanded with the launch of its Asia EDGE initiative. Over the past several months, through its South Asia Regional Energy Hub, USAID has organized several relevant trainings, undertaken key studies, and facilitated knowledge exchange. We are delighted that now with SAREP, or South Asia Regional Energy Partnership, our collaboration with USAID will be further deepened. In fact, SAREP has already started delivering for us. Bhutan, for the first time, had to import electricity from the Indian Energy Exchange early this year to meet its electricity deficit due to the lean season and breakdown of our major hydropower plant. USAID, through its SAREP program, provided hand-holding technical support and requisite training to support Bhutan's participation in the exchange. I'm excited about this new program and am looking forward to its role in accelerating cross-border power trade and a regionally integrated market. While the South Asia countries have started to reap the benefits from the cross-border trade and recently through Indian Power Exchange, under USAID's initiative, we are hopeful that more relevant trilateral energy trade and cooperation and further integration of regional electricity market will materialize. In addition, we are also looking to tap SAREP's expertise in supporting us in deployment of advanced technologies such as green hydrogen, improve the transmission and distribution systems, enhance energy efficiency, and conservation measures, and diversify to solar and wind energy. In summary, the government of Bhutan is looking forward to continuing its collaboration with the countries in the region and USAID for an economically prosperous and energy secure South Asia that is driven by clean energy. Thank you so much for inviting me to this event. I look forward to working with all of you to support a clean energy transition in South Asia. Thank you, Tashidalik.
Thank you so much, Dasho Wangchuk. Next, let me invite Mr. Azwat Mustafa, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Technology, Government of Maldives, for his special address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me thank the USAID and the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak in this important forum. In the context of regional cooperation and in the context of energy sector, clean energy development, Maldives, as you have already know, has pledged under our Paris Agreement. We have pledged to become carbon net zero by 2030, which is way ahead of rest of the world and other countries. So one of the reasons why, even though we are a small country, why we took this stand is because we feel that we have the moral obligation to demonstrate leadership, to show the rest of the world that a sustainable path is possible. We can move away from fossil fuels and adopt renewable energy technologies and yet maintain our way of life. As you know, Maldives at the moment imports petroleum products, especially fuel diesel, to cater for our power generation requirement. And whenever there is volatility, international markets, and we suffer a lot. Our economy is hit, and people find it difficult to pay their electricity bills, and the government has always had to pay huge subsidies to maintain the status quo. So this is not a sustainable way for us to move forward. And even under Paris Agreement, we have obligation to become net zero by 2030. So at the moment, what we are doing right now is, recently we have enforced a new Energy Act, which gives, and we have also established a new regulatory institution called Utilities Regulatory Authority, which under the Act of Parliament. So we now at least have a proactive regulatory agency and an Energy Act, which gives the legal powers and mandate to the various government agencies to enforce the regulation standards and to make sure the relevant agencies are doing their part to achieve these targets. The government at the moment has a very ambitious renewable energy program, and we are working with support from different multilateral banks as well as international donors to implement projects. When we started renewable energy program back in 2008, we only had less than 1 megawatt of installed capacity. But today, as I speak, we have almost 36 megawatts of solar, and by 2023, we are planning to, we have mobilized necessary projects to increase that up to 50 megawatt. So 50 megawatt may not be a huge amount for countries like our colleagues India or even Sri Lanka or Bangladesh or Bhutan. But for us, our total peak demand is in about 380 megawatt. We have 400 megawatt of installed capacity diesel generation. So 50 megawatt in solar is a very, very significant amount with our limited resources. And one thing we have also observed is, so far we have installed only roof-mounted solars, but we are now exploring floating solar projects using the shallow water lagoons to go for renewable in a very big way with battery storage, battery storage systems, and energy management systems. So this is the way forward we feel. Um, uh, and also we have recently launched energy efficiency labeling program. What we have noticed was we are investing in renewable energy, but the demand keeps on increasing. So what we have observed was, our market is being flooded with inferior, products, which is disguised as most efficient products, but which in fact they are not. So what we have come up with is, we have introduced a labeling program. From now on, we are going to, issue star labels to electrical appliances imported to this Maldives. So starting this year, we'll be issuing labels to refrigerators, air conditioners, and washing machines. So year by year, we are going to increase the list of products that we are going to regulate. So these are the sort of major developments that we are, implementing now. And with regard to regional cooperation, of course, when I say, standards, our regulator is just recently established. It is a very infant stage, so we would need definitely support from our more mature, well-established regulatory agencies, policy making bodies. So if we can have some sort of twinning arrangements with our colleagues, neighboring countries, to provide necessary support will be very useful. And also if we can adopt common standards, with regard to electrical products and appliances, that will be also very useful for Maldives. And of course, access to finance is a very limiting factor for us. If we can manage through regional cooperation, if we can have better access to finance and technology, that will be also very useful for us. So with that, let me conclude my brief remark. And once again, thank you for inviting me for this important forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Mustafa. So next I'm pleased to invite Mr. Devender Kharki, Secretary, Ministry for Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation, Government of Nepal. Over to you, Devenderji.
Thank you. Good afternoon. A very warm greeting to my fellow speakers from Bangladesh, Bhutan, Maldives, and Sri Lanka, as well as senior officials from USAID. It is my pleasure to join the esteemed gathering and speak on this regional cooperation on clean energy and climate change that is extremely relevant for our time and needs. I would like to highlight the policy priorities of the government of Nepal. Nepal's energy sector is driven by clean energy resources, that is hydropower. Government of Nepal has set target of generating 15,000 megawatt of hydropower projects in 10 years by 2028 timeframe. The composition covers the generation mix such that run-of-river hydro plants, storage and pumped storage hydro plants, and peaking run-of-river hydro plants. For achieving this, more than 6,000 megawatt of hydropower plants have already signed power purchase agreement with Nepal Electricity Authority, the government undertaking entity. Besides this, around 10,000 megawatt hydropower projects have already applied for power purchase agreements after completing feasibility studies. Further, there are various large-scale hydropower projects with different level of studies that are already completed. Nepal has fixed goal of net zero emission by the year of 2045, as Nepal announced during COP26, with the commitment to the implementation of the Paris Agreement. Regarding the transmission capacity enhancement, we have prioritized building sufficient transmission infrastructure for the domestic power evacuation, including 400 kV transmission ring in Kathmandu area, and for cross-border power tradings as per Nepal-India Transmission Master Plan as well. And we have prioritized plans for 5 years to construct around 5,000 circuit kilometers of the transmission line at various voltage levels from 66 kV to 400 kV. Furthermore, we have moved rural electrification with top priority in its policy documents so as to provide electricity access from today's 96% to 100% population by the year 2023. As such,
Thank you so much, Secretary. I think we had some trouble hearing you in between because of the network issue, but we got the gist of what you're trying to communicate. And we will try and also share some of your points with the participants. So now moving on, and I'm really delighted to invite Ms. Vasanta Pereira. Secretary, Ministry of Power, Government of Sri Lanka, for her special remarks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Anurag. Hello and good afternoon to everyone present at this SAREP forum today. Let me first thank the USAID for its regional energy initiative and providing this SAREP platform to discuss and explore regional cooperation opportunities between the countries. It is unfortunate that we are not able to meet in person, but I'm so grateful and thankful that we are still connected, at least virtually, thanks to electricity and technology. We are at a time of energy transition all over the world. We need to be prepared to meet the demands of energy transition and be able to face the challenges that arise in this process. We as professionals engaged in various parts of life cycle of energy need to understand that our decisions are increasingly going to be costly and also critical. Our decisions will increasingly be challenged for their reasonability. To transform Sri Lanka's energy system towards one dominated by renewable energy in the coming years, flexibility has to be harnessed in all parts of the power. Our transmission network needs to be flexible and also smart and controllable. Our distribution network has to be robust and resilient. Energy transition needs to be responsive, efficient, and equitable. Traditional electrical engineers' knowledge base has to be supplemented with knowledge of software, electronics, and communication. More economists and sociologists need to be consulted in coining our solutions for energy in the future. This is quite a challenging task for us. And I believe that SAREP can become an effective platform to smooth collaboration across South Asian countries for experience sharing and harmonizing standards and policies in the region. While gradually moving away from fossil fuels to green sources in electricity generation, the transportation in Sri Lanka is also expected to go on electric in the coming years. Hence, our major energy transition in the future is going to be based on e-mobility, electric mobility. We are looking forward to learn about regional experiences in the electric mobility, and I see this platform provides the direction for us. Today, energy security has become an integral part of national security, regional security, finally, the global security. Today, energy needs to be viewed through the lens defined by paradigms of national, regional, and global security, environment sustainability, social equity, geopolitical consociation. Energy sector optimization has to be carried out through this multidimensional approach through interdisciplinary analysis. There can be wide disparities exist in energy security within our countries in Asia, between regions, between continents. The compartmentalized expertise and segmented knowledge is over. It's time to get together. Addressing this energy constraint together is critical for South Asia's long-term growth and development. This is not a challenge that we can ignore or take light. This needs unsurpassable courage and skills for the decision makers. This needs innovative minds equivalent to all innovators of history put together. And this needs regional cooperation, sharing and caring for each other. In this regard, SAREP can play a major role, and I wish SAREP team a great success in bringing the region's energy sector closer and together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Pereira. So with this, we're about to conclude our first session of dignitaries and hearing from your perspectives and individual countries' priorities, as well as the opportunities for us to work together. So let me invite my colleague, Ms. Apurva Chaturvedi, to put forward a vote of thanks, and then we'll move to the next session. Over to you, Apurva.
Thank you, Anurag, and thank you to all those who are present in this today's really wonderful session. What can I say? I mean, it's a perfect cohort of all the power sector leaders from South Asia in the form of all the secretaries from our neighboring countries, and also the leadership of all the South Asia USAID missions, and with a common objective of working towards a very healthy, viable energy sector which can provide 24/7 reliable, affordable power to all its citizens through a modernized energy sector, and which would be the basis for fueling the economic growth of each of the countries. I will not go into why regional cooperation is important. All the esteemed guests have already spoken about it, and the region and the reason for a regional cooperation is already pretty evident from everyone who spoke today. My job is basically to propose a formal vote of thanks, but I don't want to make it very formal, although it's a very formal event. We are going to work very closely with the leadership of the power sector in South Asia, and therefore we will be engaging with all of you very closely as part of our SAREP program. But as they say, coming together is a beginning, staying together is progress, and working together is success. So today's event, which kickstarts, which has is kind of a launch of a regional cooperation of the SAREP program, is just the beginning, and I'm sure we will all stay together in the progress as we make progress, and then work together to achieve common success. And SAREP is going to work very collaboratively and provide complementarity to the bilateral programs in all the South Asian countries for a successful clean energy transition in the region. So I would first start by thanking all the secretaries, power secretaries from all the countries, Mr. Mohammed Hussain, Director General, Power Cell, Ministry of Power from Government of Bangladesh, Mr. Dasho Choen Wangchuk, the officiating secretary from the Royal Government of Bhutan, Mr. Ajwad Mustafa, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Technology, Government of Maldives, Mr. Devendra Karki, Secretary Energy, Ministry of Energy, Water Resources and Irrigation, Government of Nepal, Ms. Vasanta Parera, Secretary, Ministry of Power, Government of Sri Lanka. So I know how dynamic the power sector is and how difficult it is for each one of you to take out time from your schedules, but you chose to take out some time to support SAREP and to be with us. So real thank you from the bottom of our hearts from the USAID side. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the mission directors from the South Asia region, Catherine Stevens, Mission Director, USAID Bangladesh, Ms. Sevdia Kevan Shad, Mission Director, USAID Nepal, and Mr. Reed Ashkelman, Mission Director, USAID Sri Lanka and the Maldives, and our own Ms. Veena Reddy, Mission Director, USAID, supporting us all through and providing your leadership so that SAREP can work in the region along with all our bilateral missions and bilateral programs. I would also like to say a big thank you to my own team, John, Mary, Anurag, Monali, and last but not the least, and Rainier, and many others in our team. But last but not the least, as I said, our implementing partners, RTI International, which is implementing the SARE program on ground, led by Dr. Gaurav Bhatiani as the chief of party, the two DCOPs, Namrata and Sumed, all our objective leads, Ajay, Pramod, Smita, Rajiv, and all the specialists working as part of the SAREP team to not only make this event happen, but also through all the activities that SAREP has been doing so far in the last 8 months and will continue to do so in the next 5 years within the SAREP program period. So I would also like to extend a warm thanks to all the participants who have joined in for today's event and that shows the spirit of the regional cooperation with everyone coming together to celebrate the beginning of SAREP for a much more vibrant, successful South Asia integrated energy sector. With that, thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you in the next session.
There is a break in, and we will convene in another 5 minutes. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back for the second part of our today's regional launch session on cooperation for clean energy transition in South Asia. I am Monali Zia Hazra, Regional and Clean Energy Specialist with USAID India. So in the previous session, we heard senior officials from South Asia talk about their own country priorities and how they see regional energy cooperation supporting these. In this particular session, we'll be digging deeper into the opportunities for regional energy cooperation to support clean energy transition in South Asia. And in particular, we will be focusing on the enablers for a more effective and efficient regional energy cooperation. We'll begin with a short context setting presentation, which will be followed by a panel discussion with 3 energy experts from USAID Missions in the region. But before that, let me begin by first inviting Mary Tyler Holmes, Deputy Director, Indo-Pacific Office, USAID India, to deliver the welcome remarks. Over to you, Mary Tyler.
Thank you, Manali. Good afternoon. Namaskar and Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to today's second session, where we'll be discussing strategies to enable clean energy cooperation across South Asia. In our previous session, we listened to leaders from Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, the Maldives, Nepal, and Sri Lanka as they shared their perspectives and countries' priorities on opportunities for regional cooperation as South Asia transitions to clean energy. In their remarks earlier today, each senior official underscored the critical role collaborative efforts between individual countries and the region as a whole play in order for South Asia to meet its clean energy and climate goals. In this session, we have with us an experienced set of experts from USAID missions in Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, who will share their countries' viewpoints, ideas, and implementation strategies towards effective and meaningful cooperation. My colleague Manali will introduce them shortly. Before we wrap up this discussion, we also would like to hear from all of you attending this session. We hope you will share your ideas on how we can better enhance South Asia's regional cooperation. Thank you again for joining us today. And with that, I'd like to direct us back to Mona.
Thank you so much, Mary Tyler. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin with a short presentation by my colleague, Ms. Apurva Chaturvedi, who is the Senior Clean Energy Specialist in USAID India. In her presentation, Apurva will touch upon the benefits of regional energy cooperation as well as some of the means to make the cooperation more effective. So I'll request Apurva if you could have the slides on and then passing it on to Apurva. Over to you, Apurva.
Thank you, Monali, and glad to be back with all my colleagues from the missions and the other participants as well. Namaskar to everyone. As Monali pointed out, my job is just to kind of lay out a few benefits of why regional energy cooperation is advantageous to everyone working in the region in the energy sector. What are the drivers or what are the key enablers for that regional energy cooperation? And would also like to introduce the SAREP Partnership Fund as one of the enablers to do some innovative work in the energy sector. Can you move to the next slide, please? So this is just the agenda which I highlighted. Next slide. So basically, when we say what are the advantages of a regional energy cooperation, what does it mean? And I mean, in the sense, we all know now what is regional energy cooperation, but what are the benefits that can accrue out of cooperating at the regional level? One is that it improves the economic efficiency by regional optimization of resources. For example, just to explain this, this could, enable development and dispatch of least cost plans, for instance. So that is one of a big advantage that regional energy cooperation could be driving. The other is that it also propels energy security in the region, affordability and reliability of the energy supply and energy distributed to the consumer. It can also result in improved basically a lowering of tariff by developing least cost plans, integrated systems, power systems with a much more resilient grid. So those are again some of the advantages of working on a regional basis. The third is it can enhance economic growth and livelihood opportunities. For example, just if we look at Nepal, the GDP there could increase by 39% just due to a cross-border energy trade. And so that's how we that results, I mean, that actually is an example which showcases how economic activity could be higher because of this regional energy integration. And if we have better electricity or improved electricity or power scenario, that obviously increases livelihood opportunities by enhancing growth and reducing costs. One of the other advantages that we see is how it enables and accelerates clean energy transition. For example, if we have a kind of a regional cooperation, then all the countries in South Asia are moving towards a clean energy transition in the form of more renewables, whether hydro, solar, or wind, or hybrid systems. And working together means finding, since the challenges are similar, it also means that the solutions there could be a lot of inter alia learnings from each other while each one of us pursue the goals of renewable deployment. Similarly, on the energy efficiency side, that's another example as we can work towards common standards, common, efficiency, as, secretaries pointed out, many of them on standards and labelings in the energy or building efficiency, industrial efficiency, and so on. We also heard that all the countries are moving towards electric vehicles as part of their clean energy transition, and therefore having a regional dialogue on all these issues makes much more sense, because there would be a lot of learnings that each country in their trajectory towards clean energy transition would be having, and therefore we can avoid a lot of redundancies and reinventing the wheel through a regional energy cooperation mechanism. The other advantage is that we work together to strengthen the capacity of the energy stakeholders, whether it is the utilities, whether it is the regulators, the policymakers, or the practitioners. We can have common joint training programs. As I said, the region, South Asia region, has similar challenges, almost similar issues to grapple with, even in terms of capacity issues. And therefore, having structured, customized common training programs which can be delivered to each of these countries, where they are not only learning through training programs but also through peer-to-peer exchanges, talking to the colleagues from the other countries. All these could be a part of a regional cooperation work that we propose to do through SAREP. Next slide, please. So these are some of the, so how do we enable regional energy cooperation? One is that we do that by strengthening the different regional forums that already exist or have been established through various mechanisms like SARI or through other, bodies. For example, the South Asia Forum of Infrastructure Regulators, the SAPIR one, the one on system operators, the one on transmission utilities. Similarly, we have one on energy markets, the SAPIM. We have one on energy investment, the SEFI. We are also going to kickstart. So these are the forums that are already well established or are in the making. Through SAREP, we would be establishing some more regional forums like the Regional Parliamentary Forum, where the parliamentarians get together to talk about issues that are pertinent to each of their countries and how regional cooperation could help solve some of the development challenges of the energy and power sector. Similarly, a think tank forum where the minds, the bright minds and the experts get together to deliberate on issues from across South Asia. And all these, when they work to, when the folks from all across these sector forums or platforms, they work together to develop a shared vision for the future. You have consistent regulations and standards, which makes regional cooperation a reality, some common markets and shared infrastructure, solutions for clean energy and climate change challenges, and as I said, building human and institutional capacity at a regional level. Next slide, please. The other enabler could be through networks which are more informal in nature and partnerships, and that it would enable, for example, utility network. So SAREP is proposing to establish a distribution utility network for South Asia, where the distribution utilities, an area which is Achilles heel for the entire South Asian, South Asia, but has never been talked about at a regional level. It is seen as a very bilateral issue working locally, which is the case still. But yet, can you learn from your peers in other utilities in other countries? For example, Sri Lanka has really turned around their distribution utilities from loss making to almost 40% many years back to almost 4 to 5% in recent times. That's a big turnaround. Is that a story to tell to the other countries which are still grappling with the AT&C losses? And can we learn from them as to what changes they made that enabled this to happen? India has globally the largest smart meter rollout program currently going on. Other countries, we heard from all the secretaries, are also embarking on this same journey. Can India, share some of their learnings with the other regional countries? And you have a lot of examples from across South Asia where peer-to-peer learning can really enable, better results and outcomes. Similarly, can we have city-to-city collaborations? We have the concept of the net zero cities, an initiative that SAREP would be undertaking as part of their work, where it would make a lot of sense for city-to-city kind of collaborations, where action plan, where twinning arrangements with cities can be made, or we can get some cities from globally outside also to talk about their experiences on how they develop their city as a net zero city, taking care of all the things, whether it's renewables, energy efficiency, electric mobility, all in the converging together to make a net zero city. Similarly, we can also have learning platforms which can be used for South Asia. For example, there is a center of excellence called the Smart Grid Knowledge Center in India, which is a global center of excellence now on smart grids, showcasing, it has an innovation park which showcases global solutions for power distribution. Can that be utilized by the other countries also to have an exposure of those solutions? Similarly, there are training institutions which have courses which not only are suitable to that country, but can be customized for the other countries in the South Asia as well. So these are some of the learning platforms. Yeah.
I request you to wrap up in a minute.
Yeah. So I think I'm almost done. Next slide. And then the next is the capacity development. As I said, we could have structured training programs, workshops, curated study trips of delegations which cut across South Asia, joint ventures. We could have job shadowing, collaborative projects, success stories being shared. All this can lead to development of capacity across South Asia in the power sector. I think that's all. No, there is so the last is the SAREP Partnership Fund, which we just launched in, January. This fund is basically meant to support market-based solutions to enable clean energy transition. And this is how we can engage with private sector or with new and underutilized partners. This is also to harness innovative solutions, business models, resources, experience, and network of stakeholder relationships, and catalyze country and regional activities to complement the technical assistance that SAREP would be undertaking. Next slide. And these are some of the areas or the kind of activities that would be funded under the SAREP Partnership Fund, like pilots, demonstration, or incubation support to new technologies or business models, undertaking feasibility studies, market assessments, knowledge management, policy advocacy, knowledge sharing exchange, structuring of innovative financial transactions, making new decision-making tools for the energy sector. So these are some of the kind of activities that would be undertaken under this fund. We already had the RFA out. We've already closed it. We are in the process of selecting the final ones, but we have another SAREP Partnership Fund planned for June this year, which will be focused on South Asia, which is again an opportunity to collaborate. And we would be very keen if everyone takes part across South Asia and respond to this upcoming RFA. So that's all. We fly high, we fly together. Thank you. Over to you, Monali.
Thank you so much, Apurva, and apologies for rushing you a bit, but we do have an excellent panel, and we wanted to give them, enough time to deliberate on some of these very important points which you highlighted. So quickly introducing our three panel members, my colleagues from USAID Mission in the region, our three experts: Shankar Khagi, Environment and Energy Advisor from USAID Nepal; Shayan Shafi, Senior Energy Advisor, USAID Bangladesh; and we have Miriam Roseanne Cruz, we call her Roseanne, Project Development Specialist from USAID Sri Lanka. So we have allotted around roughly 30 minutes for discussion, where we'll have 2 rounds of questions for each of the panel member. We have also set aside around 10 minutes. We'll see how it goes to hear from the audience. Please do post your feedback, ideas, thoughts on the ways you think could make regional energy cooperation more relevant, effective, and efficient in the comment box which you see on your screen. When you're posting, please do put your name and organization. And if you have any question for our panel members, please do post there. So with that, let me not take any more time and bring our first panel member, Shankar, and followed by Shayan, and then finally Roseanne. And our first question for our panel member is, what are the advantages? What are the advantages of regional energy cooperation? And in your perspective, what do you think are the key opportunities for scaling this, for using regional energy cooperation for scaling clean energy in South Asia? So with that, I'll first move to our first speaker, Shankar Khagi from Nepal. Over to you, Shankar.
Thank you, Monali, and good afternoon to all the participants from the region. And to answer your question on the advantages and benefits of regional cooperation, I would like to start saying a few things about Nepal's energy sector. So until about 5-6 years back, Nepal was suffering from load shedding of like 15 hours, 16 hours a day. So what changed was, a couple of things. We started our own domestic production gradually. And then, a significant part that what helped was a cross-border transmission line between Nepal and India, which had a larger capacity and enabled us to import more power. And so right now we don't have load shedding, after 5-6 years. And as our mission director earlier pointed out, we are now in a, from 2021, we are in a surplus, energy production, at least in wet season. So because Nepal is a hydropower dominated, our energy sector, our production is mostly from hydropower, and which is based on seasonality. So we have more production when the river flow is high, which is in wet season, and the production decreases to 1/3 of our capacity in the dry season, which means that if we want to meet our peak demand during a day, which becomes very high during evening time. So we need to have 3 times the capacity of our peak demand. So if our peak demand is, for example, 1500 megawatts, we will need 4500 megawatts of installed capacity. And then what will we do with that capacity when we don't need that? So we will need to, when we have more than what we need, we will need to sell. When we have less than what we need, we will need to import. So this is what is happening, and so Nepal is very much doing power trade with India from a long back. But historically, Nepal is mostly importing. But as as was said earlier, we have started also, exporting. Nepal has started participating in the Indian Energy Exchange from last year, selling, in the day ahead market as well. However, this is just a beginning, and as our honored secretary mentioned, Nepal has lots of targets, 5,000 megawatts, 15,000 megawatts going ahead. And these hydropower projects are coming up. And so where will we sell, where will we use our energy, all this energy that's coming up? So two things: either it's domestic, increase our domestic consumption and use it for our economic growth, and or find markets, so which are India and Bangladesh, or Sri Lanka. But at the same time, we also need a firm power base when we are lacking. And so as India is ramping up its renewable energy, a lot of wind, a lot of solar into its grid, the Indian power grid will experience a lot of intermittency, and which can also be balanced by Nepal's hydropower. The different mix of peaking power, run of the storage power that Nepal is developing can be ramped up quite fast. So these are some of the advantages and opportunities of a common grid, a South Asian grid, where we will be we will benefit from each other, having a common grid. But we do have challenges. We still have to learn a lot. For example, we still a lot of our developers still need to learn how we will dispatch in a 15 minutes interval, how we will plan ahead to take part in the energy market when we start to dispatch in 15 minutes interval. What will be the protection mechanisms we will put in? How do we start planning, scheduling, dispatching, accounting, all of that? And we still haven't put in place our first wheeling mechanism yet, wheeling charges. We haven't set it up yet, Nepal. So we are still, our Urja program is working with our nascent Electricity Regulatory Commission, which is just 2 years old. And so we are trying to assist how to find out the cost of Nepal's electricity sector, and how to find out the cost of these transmission charges. And then if we open, if they make the electricity grid open, how do we charge this? How do we make this market work, domestically and regionally? So these are also some of the challenges, and we need to do a lot of catching up with a more advanced energy market that India has. And so I think these are some of the advantages, opportunities, and challenges. I think for the first round, I think I can stop here, Monali.
Thank you so much, Shankar, for excellently putting out what benefits would it mean for a country like Nepal, and also pointing out some of the challenges, which is very rightly pointed out. I'll now like to pass on the floor to Cheyenne to bring in the perspective from Bangladesh's angle. So over to you, Cheyenne.
Thank you, Monali. Good afternoon, everyone. I think before answering to that very question, I just want to highlight two things. One is the concept and the learning for cross-border electricity trade has increased exponentially over the past couple of years. So we just have to understand that whatever we have heard in previous years, let's say just 5-6 years back, it's completely different. People has learned enough to now say that what's in it for us, why do we care, and that is why I think this kind of a discussion is really key for everyone's benefit. And if we just switch gear to just talk about what's in it for Bangladesh, I just again want to highlight a few facts. And again, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand that this is actually a pretty good deal for Bangladesh. So the first thing is Bangladesh. I think many of us are already aware. In the last 12 years, Bangladesh, from a 5 gigawatt power pool, we have now our generation is about 25 gigawatt right now. So it has turned 5 folds in the last decade and or so. The GDP growth, we take pride in the GDP growth that Bangladesh has achieved and maintained over the past decade. We have been maintaining, and we know that from the government of Bangladesh perspective, that's not an option to negotiate. We just have to ensure that our GDP growth is ensured. So we need the electricity. We just have to have electricity to ensure that growth. So that's one fact. The second fact is Bangladesh. If you try to see it in the map, it's a small country, right? In comparison to the neighboring India, and in general, it's a small country with a lot of people in it. So the land is indeed a constraint for Bangladesh, and that is why renewable energy, especially solar energy, as Honorable Director General of Power Cell mentioned earlier in the in the session, that for solar-based power generation, we also unfortunately have a limit up to how much we can go. If you're talking about producing the electricity in the land in Bangladesh, so that's another fact that we need to check. The third thing is we have been enjoying very cheap and very relatively clean energy sources, domestic energy sources for Bangladesh. We used to be using our gas for almost all the power generation. That too, with the GDP growth, has depleted, and the gas reserve right now that we have, it will give us a couple of more years, but after that we just have to think about other options. So that's another fact checking. The fifth point is fossil fuel. The other alternative that we have, importing fossil fuel, is very expensive. Needless to say, but this is another fact checking we have to have. And finally, as Shankarda was also mentioning, and as Apurva was also presenting in her slides, that our neighboring countries do have some surplus energy that we can choose from. So with these 6 facts, if we just look into these things, it is a no-brainer. It's an easy win that we just have to at least evaluate our option for cross-border electricity trade. And again, as I was mentioning before, the learning has increased so much. We now know what are the right questions to ask in a negotiation table. We just we will have more generation options to choose from. That's a good sign. If we are looking for regional energy cooperation, we can utilize for the power infrastructure itself, we can utilize other countries' land, and that will also check the box in terms of our land constraint. It is going to be cheaper if we compare this to imported LNG or imported liquid fuels. We will be able to enjoy the seasonal variation it brings along with the power demand. We will also have the opportunity and the opportunity to basically change our control or change our peak demand hours, because if we are talking at a regional level, we can utilize the time difference as well. And finally, we can also enjoy the optimum use of the transmission lines if we are talking about regional energy grid, and we can enjoy earning more foreign exchanges, which is again that will contribute to the foreign exchange reserve of a country of Bangladesh. And finally, I was mentioning that it will significantly help Bangladesh to, achieve the target for achieving the clean energy target, the renewable energy percentage target that we have set forth in the Mujib Climate Action Plan, and also the nationally determined contribution, the NDC commitment to the UNFCCC. So I would like to say that these are unique things for Bangladesh, but a few of these are also applicable for many other neighboring countries here. Needless to say, if we have an operating power exchange, power market, regional energy market, it will also facilitate other types of trades in the region. It's a common thing. It will open up many other economic opportunities in terms of trade, and definitely the private sector will be also interested to be a part of it, and it will ensure mobilization of many investments in the near future. So I'll stop here, and I'll be happy to answer any question that we might have in the discussion session. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shayan, and excellent point. Specifically, Bangladesh meeting its RE targets, clean energy targets, maximizing the opportunities, using the opportunities from the other countries, both from countries like Nepal, Bhutan, as well as India with its vast amount of RE power which is coming in. So thanks so much, and we'll come back to second round of questions for both you and Shankar. I'll move on to Roseanne. So Roseanne, Sri Lanka is the only country which is not yet interconnected with India, but there is so many opportunities, as was also pointed out earlier by Apurva's presentation, where, beyond regional trade and regional markets, there are several opportunities. But would like to hear from you, your perspective in terms of Sri Lanka. Where do you see other advantage and opportunities? So over to you.
Thanks, Monali, and good afternoon to everyone. So just giving a little bit of background, last year, Sri Lanka, the government decided on a goal for renewable energy, and it decided that 70% of electricity generated is to be from renewable energy sources by 2030.
Roseanne, could you speak a little, sorry to interrupt, but could you speak a little louder? Yeah.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, just a little faint, so sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Yes, so starting off, we have a target of 70% electricity generation by renewable energy by 2030. In addition, the country has also committed to not have any more new coal power plants coming in, and to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. So at a glance, these might seem lofty goals, but on a grander scheme of things, it's not impossible either. So as an island nation, Sri Lanka has its own set of challenges, but looking at it from the sector point of view, some of these issues and questions have been asked by other countries in the region as well. So it has some of these issues in terms of how do you increase to that extent of renewable energy? How do you manage a system? Are questions that have been grappled with by other utility companies, by regulators, distributors, and even IPPs in terms of how do they get projects going. So adding on to what Shayan and Shankar said in terms of regional cooperation and cross-border trade, that's not something that we have done as yet as a country, but I'm certain there's lessons that can be learned and things that we could look at that could see how it would benefit Sri Lanka and how it can be done, because in India, Sri Lanka interconnect is possibly something that can be looked at. But moving aside from that, there are other aspects to the sector that we have, I think, a part of some of our discussions with the regional team also, that through USAID, we have seen that can be areas of collaboration. Secretary Pereira mentioned about e-mobility, and that is one of the shorter term or near term things that we can definitely look at, because Sri Lanka is looking at scaling up in terms of the number of e-vehicles that are going to be on the roads. But along with that, there also comes a requirement for infrastructure, for development of charging stations. So through the Sri Lanka Energy Program, we're looking at E3-wheelers in particular, but I'm sure from the region, there's a lot more experience as to how it can be done, commercialization, a lot of discussions that can take place. And also another topic that is actually, from the energy program, the way we've looked at it is in different objectives. So we have an objective looking at energy efficiency and demand side management. So that is definitely another area of cooperation that we could look at. Like from the program in Sri Lanka, we're doing energy audits, we're doing basic work in that sense. But I know from India, there's a lot of work that has happened in that aspect, looking at green building codes, looking at implementation of the building codes, looking at, even in Sri Lanka, we have done energy labeling for some appliances, but how do we increase it? How do we scale it up? How do we ensure compliance? There's a lot of discussions along those lines. So just looking at it from a very USAID program perspective itself, there's an overlap in terms of objectives, and there's definitely quite a lot that can be done in the sector. So, if you look at renewable energy deployment, energy efficiency, cross-border trade, e-mobility, and of course, also newer technologies. We look at what we call advanced technologies like battery storage, because it's still not a commercial scale in Sri Lanka, and it's not a new technology to some of the other countries. So that's an area that we can look at and we can definitely learn from. So I think there is a lot of opportunity for regional cooperation. And also, to have a dialogue, have a discussion to sort of see where if the work becomes a mutually beneficial relationship. So that's the perspective from Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roseanne, and makes so much of sense. Yeah, some of the things, each of the country in the region have similar sorts of problem. Somewhat are each of them, all of the countries are looking at working on EVs. India, lots of things to learn from India in terms of grid integration, battery energy storage. So great themes which you have identified. And we'll come back to the next round of question and come back to you as well. So to all three panels, our next question is, what, in your opinion, are some of the strategies that could improve, some bit of energy cooperation is already happening, mostly focused around regional power trade, and Shankar and Shayan both have been very much involved in the SAREP program since quite some time, so they know the development which has happened in the region. But now, in your opinion, what can be done more? What strategies can be done to accelerate the regional cooperation and make it more efficient, effective, and sustainable? So let me first pose this question to, again, in the same order, Shankar.
Thank you, Manali, for the question. Today we are talking about energy cooperation, which is a little bit different from electricity or energy trade. And so I think there is a distinction. So I think in terms of increasing energy cooperation and in terms of how, USAID can strategize, or how the governments of the region can strategize, I think we have developed, USAID has developed a consistent strategy, from our, SAREP program, from our past USAID programming. And we have been clear on this strategy that we need to develop, we need to harmonize our policies and regulations and, our laws. And then, we need to put in place our infrastructure for our connections. And we need to have a common electricity market, so and we have been moving in that direction, and what SARI has done in the past is to put the respective government leaders in front by setting up these task forces for each of these tasks, for regulatory works, for transmission connections, and for markets. But I think going forward from moving forward under the SAREP, I think as SAREP has envisaged a larger a scope in which we want to improve performance of utilities. We want to bring in advanced technologies, and also we want to work on how to make the electricity and energy more affordable, more safer and secure. So as other colleagues, my other colleagues, Roseanne, and they have mentioned that there are things that we can learn from each other. And then I think, for us, the first thing that I think, we need to continue to work on is to continue to improve the communications, between the governments, between the task forces. There are lots happening even at this time, and our governments are leading those efforts. For example, the joint committee between Nepal and India, they're meeting regularly, to address the questions and challenges step by step, and the recently concluded joint secretary level joint committee meeting, they agreed. What I learned is that they will increase the amount of the quantities of electricity trade between India and Nepal, for Nepal to export more to India, and they agreed to develop jointly funded, they develop projects jointly together. So I think how SAREP can increase these communications, these dialogues, not only between the government to government. And I think one of the things that I see under SAREP is also, to improve communications between the lawmakers, the policymakers, the parliamentarians. And I think, we can, we are at this point, we can, add momentum to what we have already started. Under SARI, we had already started this discussion, communication at least with Nepal's parliamentary committee, and they are still interested. They want to. They are asking when we can start this, work. Communicating with other parliamentarians, communicating our challenges, understanding each other's priorities. So I think we need to support these efforts on communication and bringing, bring stakeholders at the same, on the same page. And I think as a result of that, we will be able to achieve the harmonization work. We will identify where our grid don't talk to each other, where our policies don't talk to each other. So I think, and then I think, we will need to build up the capacities where needed. And I see a lot of capacity need in Nepal. In a lot of areas, whether it is setting up EV charging stations, or whether it is developing a regulation for wheeling charges, or to identifying how Nepal's private sector can set up a trading company, and so with Urja Nepal, we have started working with the government of Nepal on some of these issues. And so one of the complex issues that we are starting to work on is to have put in place a planning framework, a long-term planning framework that we are calling integrated resource and resilience plan. So we do feel it is very complicated and very complex, and without a good plan, power sector will again will continue to face these phases of surplus or phases of deficit. So we need a good plan. Developing a good plan for one country is difficult, challenging, but developing a good plan for the whole region will be much more challenging. Looking at each other's resources, looking at the market, looking at the demand, a longer term demand forecasting. So I think with the necessary ingredients of communications and teamwork between the players in the region in place, we can play a very good support under SAREP for that. So I think we will have a good foundation laid there. Monali, over to you.
Thank you, Shankar. So communication and capacity building, I took as some of the key things which you pointed out. So I'll pass it on to Cheyenne for his inputs.
Thank you, Monali. Shankar, that actually took away two of my points, and both of these are very important. And I'm not really surprised to hear that communication and also capacity building both are required. I'll just point on a few additional inputs around the same things, but what I have seen is that, as I was mentioning in my first response, that so much has changed over the years, right? So whenever we are talking about exchange of information, capacity building, we probably have reached that time where we need to take it up a notch. From awareness building, we just have to fine-tune our conversation to knowledge building for decision-making process. We have to understand that the awareness probably is already there now. People are made aware about the challenges and the opportunities of cross-border electricity trade. And again, people have started to talk, asking the right questions. What's in it for me? So now I think all the conversation and the exchange of information should be geared towards the knowledge for decision making. And for that, we have been, USAID has been supporting the decision makers, providing capacity building for support to the decision makers. But at the same time, we think that it is important to get the system planners on board, the grid operators on board, and also, very importantly, the buyers of the electricity. Oftentimes, we miss the utility who buys electricity, because they also have to be on board with the concept that we need to procure electricity from a different source, because all of that actually stops there, because at some point they say that we really don't know what's the benefit. So it has to be a collaborative approach of capacity building towards decision making. So it's that I think is very important. Another point I want to highlight is when the decision makers are taking these decisions, it is also important to understand the life cycle cost and benefit around this thing. It's not a one-off decision. It's a big decision. It's investment heavy. These decisions are investment heavy. These decisions are also connected to energy security of the countries. But it is important to understand the life cycle benefit it will add to the country's energy portfolio. And I mentioned it before, but I want to reiterate that it will also significantly help the countries to achieve the clean energy targets, because if we consider South Asia as a region, there are so much renewable energy resources, but untapped because of the geographic boundaries that we have. But if we come together and say that we agree that we'll have a regional network, we actually can tap into a lot of renewable energy resources in a very cost-effective fashion. I would also encourage the private sector to play. I would also encourage the decision makers to enable the private sector to play a bigger role. They have been out there, but again, in a siloed fashion. They are there just to understand what's going on. But with this bigger change, we need the private sector to be on board as well. And finally, I would also encourage everyone to utilize what we already have through the decades of USAID assistance through the SAREP program. There are very rich publications, reports that are already available. We don't have to duplicate the efforts by doing the same thing one more time. So maybe time has come to basically look into those, and again, as I'm mentioning, try to focus on the right things and actually build on those to take the right decisions in future. And SAREP, as a new 5-year program, can definitely take a big role in terms of coordination with not only just the SARI team, but also the bilateral program implementers, for example, for Bangladesh, Batch, for Nepal, Urja Nepal, and so forth. And I think we are in a very good time in terms of USAID programs. Most of these are recently started, so we have flexibility to incorporate different items into our work plans. So much can be done, and I look forward to be supporting this as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shayan. So some of the things which you really pointed out was knowledge for decision making, looking at aspects such as life cycle cost, enabling private sector, which is a big one, definitely, improved coordination, integrated planning, which was also pointed out by Shankar. So excellent points. Moving on to Roseanne, we are running a bit late, but we'll just go over by a few minutes. I hope that the audience, the participants would hang on. So over to you, Roseanne.
So yeah, I think Shine and Shankar have covered quite a bit of what I had to say as well. So I mean, looking at the Sri Lanka Energy Program, one target we have is to increase renewable energy, and we are committing to mobilize, we are intending to mobilize $1 billion to increase renewable energy in terms of the number of megawatts. When you look at increasing in terms of the numbers that Sri Lanka expects to, where we'd have maybe 7,000 megawatts coming in over the next 7 to 8 years, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the system and grid issues and things like that. So those are specific points that can benefit from peer-to-peer learning, from discussions, and from even, I would even say, safe space for open dialogue between regional regulators, between regional distributors, utilities, because there is so much that can be discussed or that's understood by someone else in the same technical specialty, you could say. But having said that, I also recognize something that our secretary, Mrs. Pereira, shared, and Shine also mentioned, that we are moving away from the siloed approach to problems, to looking at a more collaborative and interdisciplinary thing. So maybe it's important that through the regional program, through initiatives, that space for dialogue and discussion is open, where more partnerships, where it's not necessarily knowledge sharing, but also a platform for, I mean, just to have a understanding of what someone else is doing and what are things that went wrong or things that we should definitely not be looking at. It's not always the success stories that need to be shared sometimes. So that's basically in a summary as to what I would say. And I mean, the same thing, it's not only increasing renewable energy in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of e-mobility, it's the same space that's needed. We have, we work with the government, we work with the state sector, we work with the private sector who wants to invest but may not be able to invest, the government who wants things to happen but may not see it happen. So sometimes it's just needed that a collaborative approach. So that would probably be my main takeaway that I would add. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roseanne. Excellent points. I mean, finally bringing out that peer-to-peer learnings, just having a dialogue where people are just sharing their learnings, not only the success, but also failures, which are excellent points. We do have some questions from the audience, and some are posed to the speakers, as well as some general ideas, and I'll read out 1 or 2 ideas, and then I can just take up 1 or 2 questions as we are running late. But there was the commenter has not put in his details, but it is islands and coastal. The feedback is islands and coastal area can use hybrid solar wind plants or floating power plants for clean energy generation. SAREP can help in complementing India's knowledge to other countries. So that's one point. The other one is to expedite the power trading among the countries within and out of region. It is necessary to deal with it by an independent body who will be free from political influences and take decision purely on economic consideration. Again, the commenter has not put the name and organization, so I'm unable to mention that. But these are some of the ideas. And then there are a few questions. I'll ask any of you to speak to it, but in a very short manner. And some of it you've already spoken to great extent, but let me just read out. Kudos to the excellent panel. So much clarity on regional cooperation by each speaker. How do we convert policy to practice? Share your thoughts. So in one key, priority, what would you say is, how can the policy be converted to practice? I know you've spoken about it, but opening it up to any of you who would like to take it up, or all three of you. Go ahead.
Monali,
Yes, Shan.
I can just go and say that thank you for the question, and I think it is the process already has started, right? From if we recall from December 2018, when the Indian authorities, Indian government opened up through the cross-border electricity change in the cross-border electricity guidelines. They opened up for this trilateral and multilateral energy trade. So that did not come, to be very honest, just in a year or just in a short amount of time. There has been a steady process of the capacity building and awareness building, and again, getting to understand what's in it for us. I'm probably reiterating it too much, but it's really important to understand what is it into the in the government's point of view, and they have surely reached to that point where they are actually doing this already. And I would like to, I'm not sure whether everyone is online right now, but I would like to again thank the respective government officials, the decision makers, who has been really supportive in terms of taking this forward. So policy to practice, the process has already started, and I think through this continuation of exchange of information, and again, if we gear our conversation more towards decision making, I think it will be a natural flow. Thank you.
No, thank you, Shayan. Thanks for taking that question. I have one more question, which and a specific one for Roseanne. So quickly, we'll try wrap it up in 1 minute. And maybe this one, I can pass it on to Shankar. Shankar, a question, there's a big question, but I'll just read instead of the whole comment, just the question. What do you think is the strategy to go about capacity development in regional institution strengthening activities? So I'll request if you can take that up, and then we'll take the last question, which is for Roseanne.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. How do we develop the capacity of regional institutions? I think that's a very good focus that SARI has put in place. We have developed under SARI concepts for these various institutions, and then as I said earlier, there are government-to-government joint working committees and working groups. And as Apurva has presented before, we are considering an array of these different networks and institutions. But how do we develop, from these networks to some formal, institutions that will be responsible for advancing the cooperation and trade? I think as the priorities of each of the government will come clearer, and the questions about increasing the trade and increasing cooperation become more pertinent, and I think just a few years back, these questions were not so urgent, but I think these questions are becoming more urgent. And then, as we discuss, how do we set up these institutions? What mechanisms we will put in place? The governments will put in place to sustain these institutions. How we will staff them? How we will make decisions? How the institutions will make decisions? I think those answers will come about as these networks, these informal, organizations will start coming together, start discussing, and start agreeing that, okay, by question and step by step. I think that is the way forward that I see it.
Thank you so much, Shankar, for aptly taking that question now. Roseanne, there is a specific question for you, and I'll ask you to respond as in as briefly as possible. But this question is from Mr. Bhaskar Pradhan, Group Green Power Corporation, who said that it's great to hear the news on reducing losses from 40% some year back to below 10 to 5%. Can you give a small gist on what made it happen? The second bit was more broader in terms of when do you think the regional integration with Sri Lanka happens? So I'll let you take the question, which, over to you.
Thanks, Monali. I would actually not be able to answer the first question in too much detail, since it's probably a question that I would also have to get a little more clarity from the utility, I believe. But what we're made to understand is that over the years, there has been developments that has supported it, and that it's possible. But I would definitely look at the information and get back to you with more specifics. And on the second part of regional power trade, it's a discussion that's come up. But again, I would not be able to commit into specifics or timelines or things like that, since I don't believe that's still updated or known. So I have to apologize that I can't give a clear answer on that question, but I'm happy to do so once I do get some clarity on it.
And that's a tough one. That's a tough question. I mean, in a regional project, you don't know when anything is going to happen. There's no timeline. A 1 year thing may take many years, and something, if you have political, support, it can just happen like that. So it's a tough one. And we can always get back. I know I kind of didn't give you enough time also to cover it. So we can always get back to participants with the responses. The recordings is available. I think there were a few questions around the recordings. So for the first session, as well as this, the recordings will be available to the audience. We will be posting it on our social media handles, as well as making the links available. So please feel free to join, go and see once again. And I will, since we are almost reaching 4:15 and 15 minutes beyond our allotted time, I'll quickly wrap this session and our event for today. But before that, I'll really like to thank our three, panel members. Excellent points, and I agree with the earlier statement, which I learned it has been made by Mr. Suni, that excellent panel members, great clarity in terms of what you want to put across. So thank you so much for bringing in perspective from Nepal, Bangladesh, and Roseanne from Sri Lanka. Excellent to have you, Shankar Shayan and Roseanne, on this panel. I also wanted to thank Apurva for very succinctly putting forth the ideas in the initial context setting presentation. So thanks, Apurva, and also my colleague Anurag, who's been coordinating everything, and for the earlier session moderation. And last but not least, John, as well as Mary Tyler, for your support in the whole event, as well as we have been moving forward with mobilization of SAREP. And again, the most important, let me also thank our organizer for the day, RTI, for organizing this event and making all this possible, and all our panel members and participants, as well as the panel members, South Asian officials from the earlier panel, for joining us today. Excellent points were made by our panel members. I'll just take 1 minute to summarize it, as in the strategies, knowledge for decision making, looking at life cycle costs, communication, capacity building, integrated planning, regional networks, enabling private sector, utilizing what we have, the rich resources we have, looking at coordinated effort, peer-to-peer learnings, and then just having a platform where everybody can come and speak without being judged, share learnings and share successes. So that's, ladies and gentlemen, was our very eminent panel members speaking today. And thank you so much for joining. And thank you to all the organizers as well. And congratulations. Thank you so much. We log off for today, and please stay tuned. We look forward as SAREP to continue to working with all of you. Thank you.